Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar, the summer webinar series, the State of Louisiana Math. So this webinar will review information about the Louisiana Math Refresh, which provides a refresh of math materials and instructional practices focused on accelerating math learning. So at this time, I'd like to introduce the department's math team. So first of all, I am Jamie Hebert, and I serve as the Director of Math here at the department. On the call with me, I have Dr. Tashelle White, and I have Ms. Christina Robillard. Both Dr. White and Ms. Robillard serve as K-12 math specialists, and we're here to work in support of math education in Louisiana. So in today's session, we will discuss all of the tools and resources coming out soon and those that have been released through the Louisiana Math Refresh. We'll also consider practices that impact math learning for students and prioritize and plan for implementing new tools, resources, and those practices this fall. So before we dive into those new resources and tools, we first need to acknowledge current performance in our state. So Louisiana's teachers and students have been working really hard to recover from a significant drop in scores in 2017 on NAEP. So on this graph, you'll see our historic NAEP ranking. Our fourth grade students in 2017 were ranked 50th. And in our most recent NAEP release, Louisiana's 40th in the nation, which means that we grew 7 ranks from 2019. So our students are really working hard and they are growing. You can see the same evident in 8th grade, not as quite of a jump, but still moving in the right direction. So our 8th graders are currently ranked 40th. On our most recent NAEP, we got some really positive findings. So in 4th grade reading and in 4th grade math, everyone improved, and in 8th grade reading and in 8th grade math, everyone, our ranks improved. Which means that in 2019, we were 46th, and in 2022, we were 42nd. But I think we can all agree that we still have improvements to make. So when we look at the scores over time, we can see the evidence that there's still a lot of growth to make. So all those scores dropped in 2022. Louisiana's scores dropped the least in the nation. And this is really due to a lot of the intentional work that you have done and we have done with high quality instructional materials and high quality professional learning, along with our focus of returning to school after the pandemic. So you can also see that the performance over time in 8th grade is pretty consistent with what happened in 4th grade. So scores dropped a little bit, but they still dropped the least in the nation. So our NAEP ranking has improved, our scores dropped a little bit, but if we look at LEAP performance over time, we can still see that we have a lot of work to do as kids matriculate up through the grades. So in 3rd grade, about a little less than 40% of our kids are performing at mastery and advanced level in LEAP. As kids move through the grades, that percent of proficiency drops. But spring 2022 was not unique. If we look back at the cohorts for 8th grade over the past 4 years, you can see that that trend is consistent. So the 2019 cohort, the cohort all the way to the right, those kids did not experience the pandemic in K-8, and you can see that their scores dropped a little over time. And then as we move left, each of those cohorts was impacted by the pandemic for 1 year. So that's why there's a missing year of data. And that trend is getting consistently worse. So over time, as kids are experiencing mathematics, less of them are proficient when they move through the grades. Well, we we just looked at historical performance of Louisiana kids over time. And what's really exciting is that a couple of weeks ago, an impact study was released for ZEARN. So we now understand where Louisiana students compare to peers nationally and have seen our students' performance over time. This intervention is one that we now have data and research to support that it works with our kids. So in collaboration with ZEARN, the department released initial findings from the Louisiana ZEARN impact study. This study shows that we can impact our kids' performance. That students who experience learning acceleration through ZEARN do score significantly higher than those who did not. And that students who used ZEARN made more progress towards mastery, and students who were performing at the lowest level achievement moved more if they were using ZEARN than those who did not. So we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into this data. So that the little alligator map all the way to the left shows that overall Louisiana students who consistently used ZEARN scored an average of 6 points higher than those matched peers who did not use ZEARN. So that's that first chart. It shows the change in scale score for all students from the spring 21 LEAP test to the spring 22 LEAP test. The purple line represents students who did not use ZEARN during the 21-22 school year, and the orange line represents students who consistently completed 3 or more lessons each week within the ZEARN platform. Because of the matching technique, both groups of students had the same average starting score in 21. Students were matched on up to 10 indicators to control for really the only difference in what they experienced should have been whether they were using ZEARN or whether they were not using ZEARN. By the 2022 assessment, students increased their score by 5.6 points, while non-ZEARN users decreased by 0.6 points for a difference of over 6 points. So as we move across the slide, you can see the same metric broken down by subgroups. It was found that across student subgroups, Louisiana students who consistently use ZEARN increased math scores more than matched peers who did not. Horizontally along the bottom, the chart breaks down major student subgroups: Black and Latino students, economically disadvantaged students, multilingual learners, students in special education, and students who were chronically absent during the school year. You can see that across all subgroups, students in the study started at the same scale score in 21, but those who used ZEARN scored significantly higher on LEAP 2022. To take a specific example, let's look at the third group from the left, students identified as economically disadvantaged. In 2021, both groups of students started with the same average scale score. By spring 2022, students who consistently used ZEARN at that 3 lesson per week benchmark improved their LEAP scores significantly, while those who did not experienced a decline. In total, there was a 9-point difference in the 2022 LEAP scale scores between economically disadvantaged students who did use ZEARN and those who did not. So what we found in those students scoring in 2021 in our lowest category was striking. So 70% of students that scored at the lowest level of achievement who consistently used ZEARN improved their achievement in 2022. So that means if you look at the far left column, you can see the 3 starting achievement levels that are below mastery: basic, approaching basic, and unsatisfactory. The pairs of horizontal bars show the percentage of students at each starting achievement level who moved up at least 1 achievement level on the 2022 LEAP. For example, starting at unsatisfactory and moving up to approaching basic or basic. So if you look at the bottom set of bars, these are students that scored unsatisfactory on the 2021 state assessment. The orange bar represented the students that consistently use ZEARN, and the purple bar represents students who did not use ZEARN. 70% of students that did consistently use ZEARN improved their achievement level in 2022, compared to just 45% of students at the same starting level who did not use ZEARN. If we say it a different way, basically, students who consistently use ZEARN were 56% more likely to move out of this lowest level of achievement in 2022. And we saw that same trend for students that started at approaching basic or basic. So given all of this information, it's time that we set bold goals and take some bold action. We know that by 2027, students can be ranked in the top half of the nation in NAEP math performance. And we know that Louisiana students' scores can be impacted. Our students do have the potential to perform. And we also know that there are some specific actions that we can take to impact student performance. Our goal is that scale scores for grade 4 and grade 8 must increase by at least 10 points. So in order to ground our math refresh plan in data so that we can best understand the impact of our robust improvement activities, we wanted to set this long-term, clear, quantifiable goal. We looked toward a strong national indicator for math performance so that we could best tell not only about Louisiana improvements, but also how do we as a state stack up against other states in the nation. Our goal is that by 2028, Louisiana's 4th and 8th grade NAEP results will increase by 10 points in scale score in comparison to the 2022 results, placing Louisiana above the national average in math performance are in the mid-20s. So how are we going to get there? In order to reach this bold goal, Louisiana is refreshing math materials and practice. So the math refresh is centered on 4 pillars. All of the pillars are grounded in accelerating learning for all students. The first pillar will probably feel very familiar. This pillar focuses and highlights our high impact structures designed to prioritize access to high quality grade level math instruction for all students. But we've been doing that for a long time with our high quality instructional materials. Excuse me. The second pillar focuses on just-in-time proactive intervention supports that connect prerequisite learning to grade level work. I've yet to meet a math teacher in Louisiana that doesn't believe in high quality instructional materials and grade level work for all students, or that there are things that we need to do as just-in-time supports for kids. We need to acknowledge as leaders that both of those things are a really big lift. So in order for teachers to be able to do that, the third pillar focuses on the need for ongoing support for teacher collaboration and quality professional learning, so that all educators have the tools they need to be able to do this work for kids. And finally, our newest pillar for math acknowledges that families and communities are our biggest support in impacting kids' math learning. So there will be tools and supports released for families so that we can build that partnership in a better way. In the chat, you will find our Louisiana Math Comprehensive Plan. And this plan outlines the details that we'll go over in the next few slides and preview some of the resources that are available and also those that will be coming. So as we think about refreshing math in Louisiana, we really have to be clear about what we mean when we say we use accelerating learning as our strategy. So historically, there have been 2 approaches to addressing unfinished learning, often referred to as student struggle. The old approach, remediation, and then our new way of thinking about this is acceleration. So we want to make sure that we are emphasizing forward movement when addressing unfinished learning, that we're being specific about the unfinished learning that we're addressing for kids. We want to focus on readiness for today's lesson and we can't focus on every piece of mathematics kids don't know. So on this call, there's a lot of experts in education. And if we think about parallels to literacy and ELA, I don't think there's anybody on the call today that knows every word in English. That doesn't mean that you aren't prepared to have a conversation about content that you're ready to discuss. So we have to think about kids in the same way. Kids know a lot of math. Do they know the specific skills that prepare them for today's grade level lesson? So rather than focusing on the bulk of all of the math that they don't know at the beginning of the year and getting stuck in prior grade level work, we really want to focus on the specific supports kids need so that in class today, they're ready to engage with math. The second thing in accelerating math learning is we want to make sure that all students, including students with differing abilities, disabilities, English language learners, they all have access to high quality grade level math learning alongside their peers. I am in no way saying that students do not need intensive supports. They definitely do, but those supports should not be provided during core math time. We also want to acknowledge that a coherence in a math instruction should exist across all our systems. So if we think about morning work, win time, tutoring time, core math instruction across all of those settings needs to be connected to what kids need to know in class every day, and that the materials kids are being supported with in all of the extra math time is of the same quality as those materials that they're using in class every day. Every math experience kids have needs to be focused on making sure that they're ready to be engaging with and participating in their grade level math class. So let's dive into all of our pillars a little further and all of the resources that we have available. So we believe wholeheartedly in Louisiana that all students must engage in high quality grade level math instruction. So this year, systems were provided the opportunity to refresh math materials in 2 ways. There was funding that was provided to support high quality pilots, and ZEARN access has been provided to all public schools serving students in grades K through 8. To support new implementation, the department will soon release a leader toolkit designed to support math leadership at the school and system level. This toolkit is scheduled to come out sometime in the fall and will be added to throughout the year. We are also providing support that you know about because you're here today this summer, the summer webinar series for math leaders. So please sign up for all of the sessions. We'll be diving into topics such as ZEARN implementation, supporting new curriculum implementations, accelerating math, and eventually our fluency resources, which we'll talk about a little bit in a minute. If you want to find any of the resources that were mentioned on that first slide or support for implementing any of those things, our Louisiana Math Refresh page is available and is expanding weekly. So all resources that support the refresh are posted here. You can navigate to this page by Googling Louisiana Math Refresh, or if you navigate to Louisiana Believes and search math, it'll be the first link that pops up. The resources for our second pillar, acknowledge like high quality instructional materials are the first step to math success. For many reasons, students have unfinished learning, and that has been the case prior to the pandemic. And we want to make sure that those kids are always given the opportunity to be ready for new learning in math class. So to address these needs, teachers use learning acceleration, which is a just-in-time foundational approach to build prerequisite content directly supporting what kids are learning. Several resources are now available to support teachers' ability to accelerate math learning. We've recently released best practices and accelerating math learning document that highlights the practices necessary to provide acceleration to students. Much of this plan is focused on K-8 learning so that kids are ready for Algebra 1 when they get to high school. This particular document is in support of high school teachers for kids that are already in high school. The best practices for accelerating math learning document really defines what you should and should not do when you're working toward addressing unfinished learning for students. And finally, Accelerate Math. Accelerate Math resources have been out for a while, and they were released as a model for accelerating math learning about 2 years ago. They can still be used to support small groups, but our high quality instructional materials vendors are now releasing tools that serve the same purpose. So I'm going to encourage you that when you think about implementing programs that align to your high quality materials, if your materials provide those things, please think about coherence and practice when you're implementing those. That just because Accelerate Math is out doesn't mean that that would necessarily be the best choice for you, but it is a tool that is available. What we're really excited to announce today is that we will release some support for foundational learning in math for grades K to 5. So the foundational lessons to accelerate math education that we are calling our FLAME resources will provide activities designed to build students' grade level fluency and tools for teachers to formatively assess fluency and communicate with parents. So these resources, the first units will be released. Our goal is for back to school. And then the complete resources will be released rolling through the year. And finally, we will add some acceleration guidance to the Math Refresh Leader Toolkit we mentioned earlier. So if you were unfamiliar with our Accelerate Math tutoring resources, this is a picture of some of those resources. We do provide direct connections to our most widely implemented curriculum. And for K-8, that's Eureka Math and Illustrative Math. In high school, we do provide more connections because there's a more diverse set of resources in place in classrooms in high school. The FLAME resources are what I got a lot of good feedback on last week at Summit, and people seem to be really excited about. So the activities will be short, 15 minutes. If you think about the FIRE resources and the LIFT kit on the literacy side of things, these FLAME resources will serve a similar purpose. So our high quality instructional materials really do build fluency for kids. But we've heard repeatedly that it's just not enough. We've also heard repeatedly that parents want to be able to support their kids. And so part of the FLAME resources will be tools that help teachers track and document kids' fluency levels, and that's grade level appropriate fluency levels, and then a tool for them to be able to communicate that directly to parents. Again, that's all coming this fall. So implementing HQIM and addressing unfinished learning, use acceleration, both require high quality informed teachers. So to support teachers' professional knowledge, several professional learning opportunities are coming. So the department is preparing to develop professional learning for fourth through eighth grade math teachers in response to Senate Bill 163, focused on foundational numeracy skills instruction, vertical alignment of math concepts that build to algebra, building positive math dispositions, and connecting to high quality instructional materials implementation. That's for current teachers. So House Bill 326, which also recently passed last week in this current legislative session, will make sure that teachers that are in teacher prep programs leave those programs and join the field with that knowledge in place. So the professional learning focused on foundational skills training in numeracy for grades 4 through 8. Current teachers will be available in the fall of 24. and the training for pre-service teachers will be embedded into their coursework. The final thing that will be released in professional learning will be professional learning roadmap resources, and those are coming soon. Please watch our teaching and learning calls and our newsletter for additional information. And I just mentioned House Bill 326 and Senate Bill 163 requirements, and explained a little bit of that. Our final pillar and our final resources acknowledge that now more than ever, it's essential to acknowledge families as our partners to support students' math learning. We recently released the Summer Family Engagement Toolkit to provide suggestions and resources for systems and schools to share with families this summer. The new Family Math Engagement Library provides grab-and-go activities to support informal math activities at home, along with resources to connect family to ZEARN. So coming this fall, as part of that FLAME resource, we will have tools to support communicating with parents. So not just general activities that schools can point families to, but this is how your kid is performing, and these are the things that you might want to work on with them. So pictured on this slide, you'll see a picture of our family engagement library and a picture of one of those grab and go resources. I like to think about the grab and go resources really as conversation frames to help parents and families talk to their kids about math. So as teachers, we sometimes worry about families getting engaged with their kids with math. We did not include topics that get too technical here. These should be really approachable, really everyday connected math in the real world activities. So I am going to pause there and check the chat for a few questions. I see some links. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Okay, there are no questions coming through. So next steps. In our initial planning, Dr. White, can you please share the planning template? In our initial presentation at Summit, we had participants work through this template. Now, at this time, we're not going to take time to do this, but I did want to make sure that we share the template with you. So as you're thinking about how to implement all of the materials coming out of the Math Refresh, we've linked 2 resources here for you. This is the Math Comprehensive Plan resource and our new ZEARN Implementation in Louisiana resource. I encourage you to think through what are the strengths of the things that you already have implemented within your system. What are the things that we're doing really well? And we want to make sure that we prioritize keeping those practices in place. There are things that we're going to have to plan for over the next couple of years to make sure that we're implementing those in Louisiana. So the FLAME resources are coming out. What expectations will you set for your teachers? What structures do you need to put in place at your school to make sure that teachers have the ability and time to implement these resources? And if you think about the training that is coming as a result of this legislative session, for not this coming school year, but the one after that, at what place are you going to allow time for teachers to engage in that training? The final column references shifts that might need to be made. So are there things, whether they are institutional in nature, or they've been in place in your system for a long time, that you might want to let go of at this point? Are there practices you need to shift? Are there places you need to find time to implement ZEARN? So what things do you need to let go of? What things do you need to build structure and space for? This is a place where you would reflect on this document. And I'm not sure what happened to my headers and footers. And finally, we have a little bit of a timeline so you can think through when you're going to take action on all of this and build it into your systems. So finally, as we wrap up today, I want to say, make sure that as you're thinking through all of the things in the planning template, that you involve and inform all of your stakeholders, that you're using relevant data to make decisions about kids. So if we think about LEAP scores coming out this past May, that you'll be getting sometime this summer, that as kids do lots of math when they get back to school, that we're not still depending on that one data point in December. A lot of math learning happens between August and December, and LEAP, it becomes less relevant as we move across the year. Want to make sure that we think about allowing teachers to do the good work and planning that they need to, and like, are there some things we can shift away and let go of for them? And then think about, as we encourage teachers and students to engage with ZEARN, engage with training, engage with fluency resources, are there ways that we can celebrate any growth or performance that they have and highlight that for our community? So finally, all of our contact information is on this page. We as a team are here to support you in your work in the field in math education. Our favorite work is visiting with teachers and schools and supporting the work that you're doing. So as leaders, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. The easiest email is stem@la.gov, but I did include all of our personal email addresses on the screen. Thank you for being with us today. Please reach out at any point and we will stay on the call. You're welcome to turn your camera on, unmute, and ask any questions that you have. And I'll be monitoring the